Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Connecting America on the USA Today streaming channels. I'm Jim Rosenfield. We've got Kate Sullivan here at the Sunrise Diner here in Roselle Park, New Jersey this morning. Dave and Allison, they've opted to sleep in on this Wednesday. Dave, in fact, admitted that the proverbial slept through his alarm situation this morning, which we knew was going to happen at some point in this journey.
Let me just tell you, that is my greatest fear. I thought about that this morning. My heart goes out to him because it is such a feeling of panic when that happens. I've missed a test in college, I remember, and I have missed one day of work because of it.
Only one day of work?
Yes, only one, believe it or not.
After many years on that morning shift,
yes.
Right? All right, I want to start with the news of the day from overseas this morning, and a disturbing issue that's cropping up surrounding the bodies of one of four hostages sent to Israel by Hamas. The Israeli military is saying one of the bodies has been misidentified. It is not one of the hostages. The vehicles carrying the remains returned from Gaza City and arrived at the National Center of Forensic Medicine in Tel Aviv early Wednesday morning. Also, this problem, Hamas has still not returned all the bodies promised in this ceasefire agreement. So Israel is saying it will cut humanitarian aid into Gaza in half until all the bodies are released. Now, it's unclear this morning if they've followed through on that threat to reduce the aid going in.
And there is growing concern about the ceasefire as Hamas fighters tighten their grip in Gaza, reportedly carrying out public executions. In one social media video confirmed as authentic by a Hamas source, 7 men, alleged collaborators with Israel, were forced to their knees and shot from behind. According to the Times of Israel, Hamas has killed at least 33 people since the ceasefire took effect on Friday. President Trump vowed that if Hamas doesn't uphold its promise to disarm, we will, quote, disarm them, perhaps violently, unquote.
Here at home, still dealing with the shutdown, Kate, while Congress fails yet again to end it. The latest drama is over airports refusing to play a video from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. In that video, Noem blames Democrats for the shutdown and its impacts on TSA operations.
Which brings us to the question of the day. Should Congress get paid during this shutdown? Right now, they are, as per Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution. So we'd love to hear from you. Should Congress be paid during the shutdown? Yes, the law is the law. They deserve to be paid. No, if anyone should be going without a paycheck, it's these guys. There is a QR code on the bottom of your screen, and let us know what you think. You know, it's funny. When someone has a job and they have, for whatever reason, they're out of it, I always my heart goes to them. So I'm always like, yeah, they should be shut down, but maybe they shouldn't. What do you think?
Should be paid
Yes,
or shouldn't be
should
paid?
be paid.
You know, Dave brought this up yesterday, talking to a Republican strategist, and he asked that very question. Why are other members of the federal government going without pay,
right,
while the people who are charged with putting this budget in place are continuing to get paid? I think it's a very fair question.
I do too.
You know, and the House is not in session, and yet they're getting paid. Senate's been there; they've been voting, but I think it's a great question of the day. Let us know what you think on this. All right. Speaking of politicians, Election Day, less than 3 weeks away. We've been closely following the only two gubernatorial races in the country. That's New Jersey, where we are, and also Virginia. Both of these races appear to be tightening up. In New Jersey, Democrat Mikey Sherrill once had a double-digit lead over Republican Jack Ciattarelli. Now the Real Clear Politics average shows Sherrill is up by only 4 points. All right, let's talk about Virginia. Democrat Abigail Spanberger has seen her lead shrink from 12 points a few weeks ago to around 6 points with Republican Winsome Earl Sears. The right-leaning Trafalgar poll has her leading by 3 points. That's a statistical tie. So here to help sort it all out, our political analyst Jim McQueenie is joining us this morning. So let's talk about this race first here in New Jersey. Jim, why do you think it's tightening up so much?
Well, for one reason, we should separate New Jersey from Virginia. But first, New Jersey, Jim, as you said, why did that tighten up? Well, in New Jersey, I think there's a thing they're calling democratic fatigue. The Democrats have been the majority in the legislature in New Jersey for nearly a quarter of a century. And the governor has been Democratic for 8 years here. And so Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican, is basically saying, have you had enough of the Democrats? And while this is tightening up, as we see Jack there, it is tightening up. One of the things is not so much the head-to-head polls in both New Jersey and Virginia. It was going to tighten up. It tightens up when independent voters or unaffiliated voters, those that aren't registered in either party, who are the dominant force in these elections, right? When they start waking up to how they have to vote. And as they start to wake up here, it gets close. It's not uncommon that it gets close. But in the New Jersey situation, to answer your question, Ciattarelli, I think, is finding some firm ground on saying, are you happy where you are after all this years of Democratic rule? Isn't it time for change? And by the way, I'm not a big believer in the head-to-head polls, and I've run a lot of campaigns, and I've covered them as a reporter. I look at things called the sentiment polls. How are people feeling? And in May in New Jersey, there was a poll by the Eagleton Institute that said basically New Jersey voters are feeling very bad about taxes and the economy. And so that's really at play here. And Ciattarelli has been banging on that to close this race.
Jim, what about Virginia? Do you find the Trafalgar poll credible? And if so, why has Earl Sears cut into Spanberger's consistent lead?
Well, those kinds of polls that are sort of affiliated ideologically to one candidate or another, I always give them an extra 5 points for the homeboy or the homegirl in this case here. But when you look at the real clear averages, which is a good thing to do, it's still closing on here. So whether it's that poll saying that she's better off, it is closing on here. However, the Trump factor, which everyone thought after Harris won, Harris, who ran a woeful campaign, she still beat Trump in Virginia and New Jersey. So there may have been a lot of undue optimism by Democrats here in setting up the campaign early, thinking that that's going to carry over. Or it's going to carry over worse because they didn't think that Trump would be in a position at this time, in a good position. Well, he's not in a bad position. And I don't think in either case in New Jersey or Virginia, Trump is going to be that much of a factor as the local issues, except in Virginia. Lately, because of the shutdown, as we talked about before, federal employees in the big Democratic areas, Loudoun and the suburban counties outside of Washington, where most of the federal employees are, they're mad at Trump. In general, the blame goes to both the Congress and Trump, but neither of them are on the ballot, right? But in the Democratic areas, it's being pushed that it is Trump. He's the decider. And that's going to generate a lot of turnout in Virginia for here. And I don't think that's going to turn out so well for the Republican candidate, as we will start to see as this thing goes on still. I think you'll see fraying of that closing on her in Virginia. In New Jersey, I still think it's going to get closer.
There's been so much discussion, Jim, about whether these two races can be considered bellwethers, showing us what the electorate is feeling, what they're thinking about both parties. So you're saying in Virginia, it could play into that race, not so much here in New Jersey?
Absolutely. I think because Trump is sort of winning on something, losing on others, it's ambivalent and ambiguous. And I don't think it's in the independent people who are voting, and that's the volatile group and the big group in both places. I think it's actually to come down to how well the messages for all candidates fashion about state issues, most notably the economy. And in New Jersey, it's the economy and taxes. Taxes are a huge issue in New Jersey. And so far, Ciattarelli, I think, has played very well on that by claiming about 25 years of Democrats. Are you really happy? But notably, in the last debates last week, in both states, there were big developments here. The Republican candidate went after the leader here in sort of a vicious way, interrupting her repeatedly in the debate that they did here, and was very rough and ragged. And that's a sign that she feels, the Republican, that she's close enough to be able to do that. Mikey Sherrill made a lot of accusations here, again, personal accusations against Ciattarelli. And Ciattarelli, in a way, has taken the bait. He's suddenly said, oh, I'm going to sue you for what you said. And it takes him off message. And that's a danger for him right now. And if he continues doing that, I think observers think that that closure rate isn't going to close because he's not speaking to the issues that really the independent vote is looking at: taxes and the economy. He's talking about a lawsuit about some things he did, blah, blah, blah. And that's a campaign tactic to throw the other person off. And so far, from what I could see, it's working.
All right, Jim McQueenie, live for us. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your insight for us this morning. Another race that was decided weeks ago was for Arizona's 7th congressional district. Democrat Adelita Grijalva won the seat in a special election to succeed her father, yet she's still waiting to be sworn in. House Speaker Mike Johnson, who has to administer the oath of office, says he can't act until the House returns from recess, which he says won't happen until the federal shutdown is resolved. But Democrats point out that 2 Florida Republicans were sworn in early while Congress was out of session. Mike Johnson had this to say.
The difference between them and Rep-elect Grijalva is that her election was secured after the House was out of session. So there was no pre-scheduled date. We don't have family and friends in town. In fact, there's no one here. It's like a ghost town. So we're going to administer her oath as soon as she gets back. This has zero to do with Epstein.
Grijalva and her allies argue it's a double standard and that politics, not procedure, is what's really behind this delay. Now, Arizona's Attorney General said she would take legal action if Speaker Johnson will not swear in Grijalva. And coming up later in the show, we will hear from the representative-elect herself on her state of limbo.
Wait and see, right?
A couple of Republicans were sworn in. The speaker saying, well, we were just ending session, so families had already gathered. We were ready to do it, and in this case, we're not in session, so it's a different situation.
I understand that. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's get back to the situation in the Middle East right now and the fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. We're about to get a unique perspective on all this. Most people you would think, flee a war zone, but our next guest, Hannah Shank, did the opposite. She moved to Israel from the U.S. right in the middle of this war. She's joining us live from Tel Aviv this morning. She's an author, former Obama White House staffer as well. Thanks for being here this morning on Connecting America, Hannah.
Thank you for having me.
In a recent Substack, I know you wrote you needed to move to Israel to find people who love America. What do you mean by that?
I don't think that people understand the degree to which Israelis really look at themselves as a subsidiary of the United States, admire the United States, and are incredibly patriotic for the U.S. And at a time where it feels like the primary thing that's unifying Americans is that everybody is really angry at the country, it was nice to just come and be in a place where people still love America. And, especially right now, there are American flags everywhere. People are saying, thank you to our president. And it's a real feeling. They believe in America.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Now, my question is, you've experienced a war. Your feelings about the ceasefire. You told one of our producers that you feel like you can breathe again. Can you expound on that?
Yes, I will say it's not necessarily about the ceasefire. I think having the hostages home gives you permission to think about something else. It's been this cloud that has been living in the brains of so many Jews all around the country that our family is kidnapped, and you just can't move forward until you can't think about anything else. It's just this driving force of, you need your family home, And so the fact that the hostages have been returned is just, it's like, there's room to breathe and room to finally, I feel like my brain can move forward and start to think about the next steps. And I honestly don't have a lot of hope for the ceasefire. I think, we're in this phase now of that was phase one, was getting the hostages back. We're now waiting for phase two, which we don't know what it's going to be. Living in Israel certainly means living in a permanent war zone. It just is variations on how much of a war it is at any moment. So I think we are having a momentary silence and peace, but I don't think it's, I think everybody here is expecting something is going to happen again.
Can you share with us, Hannah, what that's like to live in a war zone, to live in Israel? I don't think many here in this country understand what that daily life is like when you feel like you're living under constant threat. How have you been feeling in that atmosphere?
It's funny. I feel safer here than I felt in New York, significantly safer.
Wow.
Even though we get weekly missiles from Yemen. My son's bedroom is Mamad. It's a safe room, so it's a bomb shelter. And once a week, at least, we get a siren, and we go into the Mamad and wait for the all clear. But I don't worry generally when I walk out of my house that someone is going to shoot me. I don't worry when my kids are at school that there is going to be a hard lockdown. When we were living in New York, we lived with the constant threat of gun violence. Both of my kids were in the public school system. Both of them had multiple hard lockdowns, a bomb threat, a riot. There was always something, and it was like you're always waiting for the next thing. And I, over the period of time of raising my children, they're both elder teenagers now. We went from having a synagogue that was walking distance to our house, that was like a third place for them, where they could go after school and hang out. The doors were always open. It was just, an extra living space. And over the past 10 years, it's gone from the doors are always open to there's a security guard permanently stationed out front. They had to install video surveillance cameras throughout the premises, and a single button lockdown, which they put in after the synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh. So it felt very much like we were leaving a war zone. And while, yes, we live with the threat of violence here, the threat is much more existential, and it doesn't feel like it's not coming from other people. It's not coming from other Israelis. In the United States, you live with this constant threat of violence from other Americans who want to do you harm. And we just didn't want to live that way anymore. So I feel safer as a Jew. I feel safer here.
Hannah, that is stunning that you feel safer there than in New York, and it's very telling, very revealing. We appreciate that. What's your take on the political climate in the U.S., first as a Jew and now as an Israeli American?
I think that I worked in the Obama White House, and I worked adjacent to the Biden administration. And part of why we left was because I, along with many other Jews, started to feel politically homeless. Like there was no party looking out for us. There was nobody to represent us. I felt like I didn't have a voice. So the United States is living through an era of democratic backsliding. From my work at a think tank, came to understand that we were no longer living in a democracy, and that it had been a very long time since citizens had a real voice. So I am not optimistic about the future. I think that Americans are incredibly divided, and it feels like the soul of the community has been lost. It's like, I can't think of, when the hostages came home, 400,000 people went to celebrate and wait for them all night in Hostages Square here. 400,000 people is the population of Tel Aviv. So I just thought, like, I can't think of something in America where everybody would be able to come together and have this communal, amazing experience of relief. I can't think of a single thing. And it's like, it's very painful to be here watching the country tear itself apart. And I don't think that there's anybody at the moment who is acting as a unifying voice, who's pushing back on the democratic backsliding. I think people are still living in a world of, 8 to 10 years ago.
Hannah Shank, thanks for joining us from Tel Aviv this morning. Appreciate your perspective. It's interesting that she felt in New York, close to where
It's
we are
stunning.
right here, she felt under constant threat of gun violence. I'm not sure exactly where in New York she was living.
But I think it's more the community she felt in where she is now. She feels drawn there, and I think that's what's giving her a sense of safety as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just know my personal experience in the city of New York is different from what she
Right.
described.
Right.
So everybody has a different take on it. And if you have children in school, I can understand
Yeah.
how you're worried about the potential for violence entering the school yard and the
Absolutely.
hallways.
To other news, President Trump says the U.S. military has destroyed another boat off the coast of Venezuela, saying the vessel was trafficking narcotics. The Defense Department claims the 6 men killed in the strike were narco terrorists. DoD officials also say the attack was conducted in international waters along a known trafficking route. No U.S. forces were harmed. This was the 5th one of these strikes on alleged drug-running boats in the area.
Let's get a check of our weather coast to coast with AccuWeather meteorologist Alex De Silva on this Wednesday morning. First of all, Alex, what kind of damage did we see in that nor'easter earlier in the week?
Yeah, well, most of the damage came from the coastal flooding and inundation that we saw from this long duration coastal storm that we have been experiencing along the East Coast. AccuWeather has come out with our preliminary damage estimate numbers. $3 billion in damage is what we have put out for our preliminary, and that is total damage and economic loss. A lot of that, of course, is due to the coastal flooding. Saltwater flooding is a lot more expensive to repair than freshwater flooding. So that is one of the major contributors to how we got to this number. Also, it occurred during a holiday weekend, and we had hundreds of flights delayed and canceled during this weekend. So that all contributed to this big number that you saw there. And we'll take a look across the country quickly at some of the other big disasters that we saw so far this year. Of course, the largest of the year was the LA County wildfires that we saw earlier in the year. But we've had billion-dollar disasters in other areas across the country as well. Now, if we switch gears and head back to the tropics here, what am I watching here over the next week or so? This is going to be the area in the Caribbean that I think we have to be concerned about. October 20th to the 24th, we're going to be having a tropical wave moving into this area that I think could have development potential here. So let's track it out over the next week or so. So through Sunday, I don't think anything's really going to come of it. It's going to be coming across the Atlantic. Nothing really going on with it. Once it approaches the Lesser Antilles early next week, I think we can start to see some slow organization. Probably won't be a tropical storm at that point, but it's definitely going to be, I think, getting a little better organized. Then once it gets into the Caribbean Sea, I think that's when it could really start to intensify, and that would be late next week. So we are very far away from when this could be intensifying, but the water temperatures are so exceptionally warm in the Caribbean here. There's been no tropical systems that have moved through that area to essentially mix up that water and bring cooler water to the surface. So it's basically untouched prime conditions in this area for development. So this is something I think we're going to have to watch very carefully as we go out through the rest of next week. We're going to have to watch a dip in the jet stream to the north that would have the potential to pull whatever develops down here to the north. So I think it either gets pulled to the north or it might just keep going west into Central America. So again, plenty of time to watch this, but I think this is the next thing that we're going to have to be keeping a close eye out for.
All right, Alex De Silva, thanks for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
Connecting America is just getting started. Up next, the man who set fire to the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania has pleaded guilty. More on his sentencing when we return.
Welcome back. Couple of high-profile stories want to get you caught up with from the courts this morning. Let's start in Pennsylvania and the arson attack against the governor's mansion back in April there. Cody Balmer has now entered guilty pleas to attempted murder, arson, and other charges. This happened yesterday. Governor Josh Shapiro and his family were at the governor's residence sleeping at the time. So were several other people, including guests and state troopers, and the mansion sustained heavy damage. Everyone got out okay. That's the good news. And nobody was hurt. Now, under this plea deal, Balmer received a sentence of 25 to 50 years in state prison. Security footage shows Balmer scaling the fence and then throwing a Molotov cocktail through a window before he went inside. To this now, Life After Justice is a nonprofit created by and for people who've been exonerated of crimes they did not commit. Joining us this morning is attorney Jarrett Adams. He turned his own fight against wrongful conviction into a lifelong mission to overturn the convictions of others, help them get back into society, and he's here with us this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Jarrett, what is your own story about being convicted and exonerated, if you don't mind sharing that?
No, it dovetails right into why the organization exists. So I was a 17-year-old kid. I was falsely accused of a rape. I was wrongfully convicted. Thank God, the Innocence Project of Wisconsin and some law students took on my case. They fought my case for 5 to 6 years, and I was fully exonerated, record expunged, and I was released to come back home. But the damage still existed after going through that wrongful conviction.
Can't imagine what that's like to try to start over after something like that. And we know that you helped two men known as the Waverly Two get released last spring from prison in Virginia after more than 2 decades behind bars. How is their reintegration into society going this morning?
Yeah, it reminds me of my reintegration. I was thankful that I had my mom and my aunts are just some strong women. And they made sure that I got the mental health care that I needed, the health care that I needed as well, and got back on the road to recovery. So when I see these men come home, they have strong family bases, but they still need the public support and the public help to getting their lives back together. The one thing that I realized, through this journey is this. When I came home with something that was invaluable, and that was my youth. These men that you see on the screen right now who are hugging their sisters and their mom, they came home when they were in their 40s. I came home when I was in my mid-20s.
Not everyone has a mom and aunts like you, right? That was a blessing that you had.
Yes.
What does Life After Justice provide beyond the legal work for people like the Waverly Two?
I tried to replicate the family support. There wasn't a time when I got out that I would come around my aunt or my mom that I wouldn't get a hug, that I wouldn't have someone ask me, how are you doing? And so what we do with Life After Justice is we've provided mental health care that is specifically designed to help people who've been robbed of so much time, like Terrence and Ferran and like myself. So the mental health care is not just hey, you come in, you sit on the couch, and as my favorite show was, the Tony Soprano scene, it's more so, look, what are you doing in life? How do we talk through these things in life? How do we get over these hurdles? And how do we do these things with knowing that you've spent so much time out of a society that has rapidly continued to grow and change without you?
Can you share any or shed any light, Jarrett, on why we see wrongful convictions and the main reasons, but why that's happening?
Yeah. So let me say this. No matter what side of the aisle you are on, whether it be right or whether it be left, justice is always in the middle. And we have a man-made system, and the system makes mistakes. It just does, right? There are times where there are dogged investigators and officers who think they got it right, but they got it wrong, right? There's science that comes behind, and DNA can prove and show a different perpetrator of the crime. And I think that what we need to do is this: we need to acknowledge that our system is man-made, in the same way that a car wash is. When you send a car through the car wash, and let's say the machine doesn't get a bumper good, you immediately go back through that car wash where you're giving some money back or there is something to rectify the situation. That's exactly what we need to do with our criminal justice system. We need to stop just throwing it under our bed like our dirty socks. We need to deal with it because we are better as Americans when we face this system head on.
Attorney Jared Adams, thank you. Thanks. You are the co-founder of Life After Justice. We really appreciate you being with us and telling us a little bit about your work.
Yeah, talk about turning something terrible into good in terms of the work that he's doing on behalf of others. Thank goodness for people like him for helping those re-enter society.
And the anger.
Convicted.
I would think that
how you get over that.
How do you get over the anger of the time robbed? I would think that would be hurdle number one.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, coming up next, U.S. measles cases, they're continuing to climb this morning. We're going to tell you about the latest outbreak in South Carolina, and we'll speak with a doctor about what can be done to try to prevent the spread when we come right back. Welcome back to Connecting America from the Sunrise Diner here in Roosevelt Park, New Jersey. Charlie Kirk, he would have turned 32 years old yesterday. The Turning Point CEO was shot dead, as we know, last month as he was speaking at a Turning Point event at Utah Valley University. President Trump yesterday posthumously awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. His wife, Erica, received the award in his honor.
And today we're gathered not only to celebrate Charlie's birthday, but to honor a truth that he gave his entire life to defend, and that's freedom. The very existence of the Presidential Medal of Freedom reminds us that the national interest of the United States has always been freedom.
You know, the grace that she's shown not only at the funeral but throughout this whole grieving process is really remarkable.
It is
Yeah.
a very strong person, obviously, and caring for the mother now raising two children on her own
By herself,
Yeah.
exactly. There's an outbreak of highly contagious measles in upstate South Carolina we want to tell you about. As of Tuesday, the state was reporting 16 cases. Another 153 unvaccinated students in South Carolina have been quarantined. It's an illness that was declared eliminated in our country in the year 2000. But as of last week, the U.S. had 1,563 confirmed cases. Last year, there were 262 cases in total. So, what could have been done to stop the spread? And what can be done now? We're joined by pediatrician Dr. Mansi Kotwal to answer our questions. Dr. Kotwal, first of all, thanks for being here. You are a board member on Healthcare for Action. Appreciate you joining us. What is behind the resurgence of a disease that had been eliminated 2 decades ago?
Thank you so much for having me. And, honestly, the bottom line in terms of why it's now here again, right, and actually in such a high number is the vaccination rates, right? So the vaccination rates have become, substantially declining over the past several years. And we found, right, that if you don't get vaccinated against measles, you're not going to be protected. And when you think about measles in general, you need the vaccine to protect you. But if you are not vaccinated, you have a much higher risk of actually contracting the virus compared to even the flu or a lot of other viruses that may not be as contagious. That's really why we're seeing, the resurgence of the measles and just the higher rates, in various communities across the country.
So I'm assuming a lot of the discussion that we're seeing from the Department of Health and Human Services and the Health Secretary, RFK Jr., that's not helping to promote vaccination against measles at this point. Am I right?
Not at all. So, we obviously are seeing and hearing a lot of different things from government officials. And unfortunately, this anti-vaccine rhetoric is just going to make a rate of decline, honestly, that has been going on for the past several years now. But it's just exponential rate. So we have misinformation, we have disinformation going on about healthcare. And unfortunately, science has become politicized, right? And that is of this, right? So if you come into a hospital, you're going to get a lot of questions, right? What's your name, your date of birth, your age, you're going to get your vital signs checked, your weight, your blood pressure, your temperature, all of that stuff. They're going to ask you where you live. They're going to ask you your race, your ethnicity, what medical conditions you have, what medications you're on, and they're going to treat you based on they have for whatever kind of infection. They don't ask you what your political party is, right? They don't ask you who you voted for in the last election. And nowadays, science is not only politicized, but then this politicization, if you will, is leading to a lot of people not only not trusting scientists and healthcare professionals, but also the government. And so, and I actually don't blame them, right? So they're hearing a lot of different things and seeing a lot of different things on social media. And so none of this is helping the anti-vaccine rhetoric and just kind of the massive social media campaigns that you're seeing and just a lot of misinformation that's going on.
Well, we know measles is incredibly contagious, right? So my question is, what symptoms should parents be looking for in their kids? And if someone is vaccinated, could they still contract it?
So the common symptoms that you're going to see in the beginning are you're going to be fever, cough, runny nose. So things that you're going to see with like the flu or any other common cold, to be honest with you. And then you're going to see a very classic rash that spreads from head to toe. And it's very classic for measles. And to be honest, I've never seen it personally. I've only seen it in the textbook. And that's kind of true across the board for probably a lot of practitioners in this country. But obviously we're seeing more and more patients that have this. And so more practitioners are actually seeing this in person. In terms of the vaccine and whether you're vaccinated and if you are able to then get it, it's actually one of the most efficacious vaccines there is out there. Mm-hmm. So a single dose is going to protect about 93% of patients. Wow. 2 doses, that level of protection is going to go up to 97%. And then when you look at how long that vaccine is protective for, it's for life. So I'll give you an example. When I started my job, I had to get vaccine titers for measles specifically to make sure that I got the vaccine or was protected. My titers were through the roof. Like literally the health, our like local kind of HR department was like, wow, I've never seen levels this high. But ultimately that's really just to say that, this is lifelong protection that you're going to have. And it would be very unusual for you to get measles if you were vaccinated.
Doctor, what would you say to parents, and we've had some of them here on Connecting America, who feel strongly that these decisions are personal decisions, that parents should be able to decide whether their children should in fact be vaccinated? What's the risk in deciding against that vaccination? Are we seeing it right now?
So I completely empathize and can understand when a parent doesn't want to do something or is hesitant to do something that is, they're being told to do. One thing I'll tell you is that the measles vaccine has been around since 1963, so over 60 years, and it has proven to be safe and very, very effective. So that's number one. And then number two, when I think about the immune system in general, and I think about kind of how our body is protected from a virus or a bacteria, I like to compare it to kind of an army, right? So we have an army, if you will, of cells in our body that are protecting our body from invaders, the bad guys, whatever. And these, when you look at your human body, these are going to be your bacteria, your parasites, your viruses, cancer cells, things like that. When you think about that analogy and you take it into like kind of a population or public health perspective, you are looking at the army being the patients or the people that are vaccinated. And that army needs to be about 95% of the population in order to protect the other members of the community that either can't get vaccinated because they're too young, or can't get vaccinated because they have maybe an immune system that's compromised, or maybe they have an immune problem that leads them to not being able to mount an immune response when they get the vaccine. So really, it's our job as a community to protect those individuals. And when we end up having higher rates of people that are not vaccinated, that army is going to get weaker. And, the arm length, the distance between the arm length, the links between these army people that are protecting the community is going to get bigger. The gap is going to be there, and then we're going to see penetration of the invader, or in this case, measles. And so it is kind of a collective effort that we have to have, and a collective kind of thought that we have to really protect our community. And I would just kind of encourage people to think about it in that way.
All right, Dr. Coatwall, thank you so much for joining us and giving us that information. Up next, Christmas in October, we'll introduce you to the Manhattan Man who plays Santa because for some reason he gets hundreds of letters meant for the North Pole. Connecting America will be right back.
Welcome back, everyone, to Connecting America from the Sunrise Diner here in Roselle Park, New Jersey. Hey, if you're redecorating your home or maybe redoing your kitchen or your bathroom, get ready to dig deeper to pay for it. Tariffs on lumber, kitchen cabinets, upholstered wooden furniture, even bathroom vanities, they've kicked in this week. The new tariffs on timber and lumber are 10% on finished goods like the furniture, cabinets, and vanities. It's 25%, and those are set to rise on January 1st. White House says the tariffs are designed to encourage more domestic logging and furniture making. Separately, the trade war with China is heating up. President Trump is continuing to threaten tariffs of 100% on China starting November 1st. Beijing has placed export restrictions on rare earth minerals. In return, those are used for everything from semiconductors to electric vehicles and other high-tech gadgets. So the tariff situation continuing to be an issue for businesses and everyday Americans across the country.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it changes consumer spending and how and what sectors, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we've all heard of the movie The Miracle on 34th Street, but The Miracle on 22nd Street is for real, and it's really fascinating. For at least 15 years, an apartment on 22nd Street in Manhattan has been receiving hundreds of letters addressed to Santa. My next guest used to live there and receive those letters. He was so moved by them, he formed a nonprofit called Miracle on 22nd Street that matches up real-life elves with families in need. Let's go to Jim Glob, who's going to join us and tell us a little bit about this. First of all, Jim, love your outfit. You look fabulous.
Getting ready for the season, right?
Getting ready for the season. Today is a big day. You're opening the door to families. Tell us a little bit about how this works.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I was just listening to your last piece about the tariffs on wood, and I'm thinking about all the elves with the wood toys.
Yes.
Oh, gosh. How are they going to get it done?
I know. So, yeah, 15 years ago, about 400 letters to Santa were randomly delivered to my apartment in Chelsea. We didn't know what to do. We were kind of like, what is this? What's happening? And basically through a party where all of our friends came over, and it sort of organically, people started to take the letters and really birthed this new nonprofit called Miracle on 22nd Street, where letters come in from people all over New York City, New Jersey, and the rest of the country. And essentially, volunteers, we call them elves, will essentially take a letter and fulfill them all digitally. And it's been amazing and such an incredible opportunity to help people.
How do you match up the elves with the families?
So it's all digital. So essentially, a family will essentially submit their Santa letter through miracleon22ndstreet.com. Our team of elves will vet them, make sure everything looks good. A lot of them are repeat families, right, that have been doing this for many years, and then essentially are sent onto the website where elves can go through and actually pick up a letter. But what's even funnier, though, is that the letters, the actual physical letters that we got 15 years ago, are still coming into that apartment. I don't even live there.
Why is that happening?
Yeah, it begs the question, is it happening on 42nd Street or 52nd? Is it just 22nd?
Okay. So this is so crazy. There's like two ideas here on where this happened. One is the practical answer that basically the letters came in because maybe someone who had lived there before, because the guys who lived there before had been getting the letters, and then they told them that the people before them had been getting the letters for 20 years before us, right? Before we got there. Now, the crazy thing, though, is that it's also in the same street that Clement Clark Moore lived, who wrote the very famous Christmas poem, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas."
Oh,
he lived
yes.
in that estate, essentially, and was getting Santa letters back in the mid 1800s.
Wow.
When he published the story. So had it been going on for that long? Who knows? But it's the letters are still coming in. The woman who lives there, her name is Virginia. Yes, Virginia.
There is a Santa Claus. Isn't that meant to be?
You can't write this.
No, isn't it?
Do you have any especially memorable letters? Some of the most moving stories that came to you?
There's so many incredible stories and families. I think one of the biggest things that happens to me is when a family, when somebody becomes an elf who had said that they had been receiving, they had been on the receiving end of becoming.
Oh, wow.
Essentially, they would get adopted
Yes.
by an elf, and so
Right.
they become an elf themselves to help other families, right? So
Oh,
one
that's great.
many of these kids have been a part of this and then essentially go out, live their lives, have fabulous lives and experiences, and then essentially give back themselves. I mean, how fabulous is that?
Is fabulous. You know, that when you're the recipient of magic and then you're able to become a magic maker, right?
Oh,
That is what the holidays are all about. You know, a little elf told me there could be a movie in the works
oh
about your story. Am I right about this?
yeah, so Tina Fey has written a movie about this. It's
Ah,
going to be a New York City comedy Christmas classic. Like I cannot
love it.
wait
Wow.
That's
for you all
awesome.
to see this because we've needed a good New York City mystery magic Christmas story, and no better person than Tina Fey to write this. So,
No
Do you
better.
know who might play you?
I mean, Channing Tatum, of course.
Who do you want? Is that who you want to play you, Channing
No,
Tatum?
I don't know. Steve Buscemi. No, I'm just kidding.
That's
No,
really fantastic.
What a
it's
great story.
wonderful. I mean, and if that comes out in a big way, what if it does inspire people to help families in need? I mean, really, that's the whole point, right? Is that it's that the season isn't about just you; it's about our neighbors and our families and our friends. So.
So can you tell us how people get a letter to you now if you're not on 22nd Street?
Yeah, so basically, if you are a family that does need a little bit of help this year, you can go onto miracleon22ndstreet.com and sign up. And then if you are looking to donate or become an elf, you can go on and we'll open up the doors to our elves on November 15th so that all of the Santa letters will be available for people to see. So, and you can adopt a family in need. We're also partnering with Culture for One, which is a foster care organization this year, as well as the Covenant House, which is
Mhm.
a homeless shelter here in New York City. So it's just fantastic. I'm so excited to be able to expand in our 15th year. It's crazy.
Wow. Well, we needed this story today. You know, after
I
the news of today, after
I
everything that's going on, you brought a little bit of sunshine to our show today. So we just want to
there.
say thank you very much. I
Thank
hope people
you.
log on to your website and contribute or help or perhaps write a letter. So thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Happy holidays.
You
Happy
too,
holidays.
miracleon22ndstreet.com once again.
You know, it's funny, just yesterday, you know, I'm in the throes of Halloween with my kids and picking out costumes, and I
Yeah.
just got pumpkins. I put
First
them
things
on the
first,
porch.
right?
But I went by West Elm and I looked in and they have the Christmas trees up with
Oh
all the
yeah.
ornaments. And I'm like, oh my gosh, mid-October, here we go.
So get ready.
Yes.
Dave was talking yesterday about costumes for us for
Are you going to dress
Halloween.
up?
So if you're around
Okay.
Halloween week,
I didn't realize I had to
get ready
mask
because we don't
myself,
know
but
what this costume is for. It's a group costume that
oh,
Dave has in mind.
okay.
All right. Hey, if you'd like to connect with us, you can download the Best of Connecting America every day wherever you get your podcast. Just type in Connecting America in the search bar, or you can follow us on social media. We are all over it. There are the handles for you. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Yep, we will be back at the top of the hour. And as the diner fills up, we got a couple folks roaming around here. We'll try to talk with some of the folks here. We'll see you in a little bit.
The views expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of USA Today or its affiliates.
One of those protein shake
I am.
consumers.
Smoothie at least once a day, honestly.
Really, every day?
With protein powder.
Okay, well, you want to listen up to this story, Kate. You may change your habit there. People use protein powder and shakes to improve their health, but a new Consumer Reports study says many of them could contain unhealthy levels of lead.
Yikes.
Consumer Reports tested 23 different powders and shakes from popular brands and found lead in more than 2/3 of the products analyzed. A single serving contained more than Consumer Reports health experts say is safe to consume in a day. Sorry.
Yeah, not
Topping
good.
the list, Naked Nutrition's vegan mass gainer powder.
Okay.
Naked Nutrition issued a statement saying the company commissioned an independent test in response to the findings, saying that study confirmed that no heavy metals exceeded FDA reference intake levels.
Wow. Well, joining us now is Dr. James Rogers, the Director of Product and Food Safety Research and Testing for Consumer Reports. Thanks for joining us. What are the health dangers presented by these levels? First of all, just the sound of lead in your protein powder sounds bad. But what about these levels? What can you kind of break it down for us, the dangers here?
So we said in the article that while these levels were high, they mostly present a problem chronically, so over time. It's not like it's an acute problem where you would eat one of them and then you would immediately see symptoms, but it would be over time where you would take this, as you noted. Some people drink them daily over a number of months or years, and the effects of lead contamination accumulates. Plus, you have to realize that there's potentially other sources of lead in your diet, in your environment, in the air, in the water. And so this could be just one part of numerous exposures to lead as you go about your regular normal day.
Wow. And I wonder what the symptoms of excessive amounts of lead in the body are.
So you may remember years ago the concerns of lead-based paint because they noticed that children that were exposed to lead had a problem neurologically. They had a problem with learning disabilities, a problem with behavior. And this is especially true for children, but also pregnant women or women that want to get pregnant. If they're exposed to high levels of lead, it could affect the fetus and its development and growth. And then when the baby is born, you can see some of these neurological and behavioral problems as they start to grow up.
Why is lead getting into these powders? And is it just the powders or some of the drinks as well?
Well, we tested the protein powders and the protein shakes. What you have to realize is that, especially for the plant-based ones, and our story on dark chocolate a little while ago explained this too, where if there's lead contamination in the soil, the plants that are used, and primarily in the United States, it's pea plants, pea protein, they will absorb that lead that could be in the soil and it will end up in the final product. Also in the water, if there's lead contaminated water, the air, if the places where they're growing these plants are close to like a factory that makes batteries, those factories can release lead into the environment, contaminate the plants. For the animals, it's the same thing. The water they drink, the feed they eat could be exposing them to lead. And so there are a number of different ways, but a lot of it points to environmental contamination that eventually makes it into the final product.
Yeah, and that's counterintuitive because you think if you go plant-based, it's a little bit healthier, but actually it perhaps has higher levels of lead. What other products top the list?
Well, that's what we saw, that if you look at a range, that is the plant-based that were the worst, it was the meat-based, beef-based that was next, and then the in general, these are generalities, it was the milk or dairy-based products. I don't think I heard your question.
No, were there other products on the list other than the plant? Yeah.
So what we talked about before is the do not buy products, and you name Naked Nutrition's vegan mass gainer, Huel's Black Edition vegan powder. Those were on the do not buy list. And so if consumers looked at our article on cr.org, you will see we have ranked the number of them as to okay to use once a week, once a day. And we had one product, Muscle Tech 100% Mass Gainer, that had no detectable lead. So if you want to use these products and then drink the best ones, at least in our testing, that Muscle Tech one, again, had no detectable lead. So it was the safest of all the ones that we tested.
Okay, that's good to know.
So you get no lead and you just bulk up, Kate. Is whey better? Is that WHEY? Is that
Yes.
A better option?
Well, in our testing, it was the whey products, even though there were some that had some issues, it was the whey products that were on the safer or less lead containing products. The article also talks about, we don't really think you need these products, right? We have a link that will actually help you calculate your protein needs. And then we believe a whole food diet where you use legumes, Greek yogurt, more meat, eggs, tofu, so you can get your protein needs met naturally through diet, that these products are really not needed unless you're like a bodybuilder or an extreme athlete, or some people that are, as they age, there's some protein needs that increase because of their loss of muscle mass. But in general, we believe the general consumer should be trying to get all of their protein needs met by consuming whole protein filled foods.
All right. Well, thank you for the information, and noted. I will.
What's for lunch
Yeah,
today,
exactly.
Kate?
It won't be a smoothie today. All right, to other news right now. President Trump declared an end to the war in Gaza, but the ceasefire is already showing signs of weakening. Hamas handed over the bodies of 4 more hostages to Israel. The Israeli military is saying one of the bodies is misidentified and is not one of the hostages. Vehicles carrying the remains returned from Gaza City and arrived at the National Center of Forensic Medicine in Tel Aviv early Wednesday morning. Also a problem, Hamas has still not returned all the bodies promised in the ceasefire agreement. In response, Israel said it will cut humanitarian aid into Gaza in half until all the bodies are released. It's unclear if they followed through on the threat. Meanwhile, there are reports of Hamas tightening their grip in Gaza. In one social media video confirmed as authentic by a Hamas source, 7 men, alleged collaborators with Israel, were forced to their knees and shot from behind. According to the Times of Israel, Hamas has killed at least 33 people since the ceasefire took effect on Friday. President Trump vowed that if Hamas doesn't uphold its promise to disarm, we will, quote, disarm them, perhaps violently, unquote. With more on the future of Israel and Gaza, we are now joined by Middle East political commentator Karis Rea.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us this morning, Karis. Let's start with your thoughts about seeing the hostages back home finally as part of this ceasefire. What's that been like to witness?
Oh, there are no words, honestly. You don't even have to understand Hebrew just to really be moved by these scenes, these embraces of loved ones, some young infants who don't even know their fathers, and seeing them for the first time. And it's keep in mind that this is really all that Israel wanted from the beginning. In the early stages of the war, they were not even asking for surrender. They just wanted the hostages home, and that eventually changed. But you can see just, from these videos and from the unity coming out of Israel, the enormous relief of the Jewish people as one organism, one body. And it really shows how Israel has a commitment, not just to every Jew, to provide safe harbor for every Jewish individual, but also to every citizen, because there were Muslims and other non-Jews that were taken hostages as well. And Israel valued every life equally and sacrificed almost 1,000 of their own men to try to rescue them. And, contrary to being an ethno-state or a Jewish supremacist country, Israel is really a model for humanity. And we can contrast that with a restaurant in Gaza that just opened one day after this ceasefire and this supposed genocide, which was named Nova, after the Nova Music Festival, where hundreds of young concert goers were slaughtered and kidnapped. So, bless Trump's heart for getting hostages out for the first time without a complete exit from the Israeli troops. But we owe just as much to Netanyahu and to those nearly 1,000 IDF soldiers that made the ultimate sacrifice for their country.
What about the news that's just coming out about Hamas not delivering all the bodies? What is your take on that, and what happens next?
Right. Well, as you said, only 7 of the 28 have been returned, and one of them is misidentified. I think Israel confirmed that just today, which is the same thing that happened the last time there was a ceasefire with Shiri Bibas, the mother of those 2 poor infants that were slaughtered by Hamas. And this is maddening and frankly outrageous. As you said, I mean, this was a condition of phase 1 of the 21 of the 20 point plan, and it's already been broken, and it presents a real problem. Does Trump have any sort of mechanism to get them back? I mean, I think he said that Turkey was going to maybe go in and look for them, but nobody knows Gaza City, which is probably where they are, if it's true that Hamas is unable to locate them, better than Israel. So does this mean Israel is going to have to re-enter Gaza City? I mean, Hamas has already entered that vacuum and essentially began a civil war with other clans, as you just showed. Trump says they're gangs, but we really don't know. But, I don't know. What then? I mean, some international task force is sent in to go look for them. Ultimately, this is already creating a huge inflammatory situation on the ground. And it just goes to show that Hamas is not operating in good faith. It never has. It has no intention of disarming, regardless of what Trump says. And honestly, this is not a peace deal. I hate to say it because I'm just as moved by the hostages being home, but it is not a peace, a lasting peace, let alone in the Middle East. And it is certainly not the end of the war. We have a long way to go.
Do you have any perspective or thoughts on the potential for Western journalists finally to be able to enter Gaza to see firsthand what the situation really looks like on the ground there? Because we've only seen it through very limited eyes because of Israeli restrictions on journalists entering the territory.
That is true. I don't think that is so unlikely or uncommon. Sorry, not unlikely, but it is not so uncommon if we look at other war zones, even like Ukraine or other active war zones, and especially in this region. A lot of people, including pro-Israel Zionists, think that Israel should have let in more journalists. I am not of that persuasion because of the incredible manipulation and corruption that Hamas engages in against journalists. Basically, the more journalists that Hamas kills, the better for their side. And so Israel does not want to be in a situation where it is actually putting journalists in harm's way in an area where they are more likely than in other war zone situations to be killed, just because of the incredible information and psychological warfare that goes on here. And then Israel would be blamed in a way that no other country is blamed when journalists are killed. So Israel is in this double-edged sword. If they don't let in journalists, then they're blamed for trying to hide the truth. But if they do let in journalists, many of whom will inevitably be killed, then Israel is blamed for killing journalists. It's a really difficult situation that Israel has to navigate. As for the future, I do not know the answer to your question. I have not heard anything about that. But if Hamas is still patrolling the streets, remember there's 250 cold-blooded murderers that are released and 1,700 Gazan detainees that are back into, that are many of them back into the Strip. And there could be a lot of Yahya Sinwars in there, who was the October 7th mastermind who was released in a previous deal in 2011. So it's true that Hamas is severely degraded into a guerrilla army, but I think as long as they're standing and in control of urban areas of the Strip, then Israel will have to, that's not going to be a decision that they make lightly. They'll really have to consider whether they want to let in journalists.
Karis, earlier in the segment, you said, God bless Trump. Can you give us a little temperature check? What are Israelis saying about President Trump and his peace summit, and what happens next in the Middle East? What is the opinion that you're picking up?
Oh, Israelis love Trump. I don't think there is any country in the world that is more pro-Trump than Israel. It might even be more pro-Trump than the Middle East. I mean, even Israelis who can't stand Netanyahu are cheering for Trump. So there's overwhelming support for him. And there has been certainly since he took office in 2024, but also in 2016. Israel was a largely pro-Trump country, with, of course, many exceptions because it is a democracy. But with regards to this International Peace Summit, I think Israelis are rightfully concerned. I mean, like I said, it's not a peace summit, this Sharm el Sheikh meeting. I mean, yes, we have our hostages back, amen, and I think that's what Israelis are focused on right now, but this is not a victory until Hamas is completely disarmed, demilitarized, is no longer the governing body of Palestinians. Then, contrary to what Trump is saying, we cannot claim victory, or nor can we say that this war is over. I mean, everyone's framing this as a peace deal and peace in the Middle East, but in my opinion, Trump, as much as I love him, is pushing this illusion to essentially get everybody dependent on him in order to usher in the Abraham Accords and get the Nobel Peace Prize. Because think about it, what's peaceful about a summit that is being called by Trump, chiefly concerned with Israel, with Netanyahu initially invited, only to be pushed out because Hamas's, some of their biggest backers, namely Qatar and Turkey, have refused to actually have him there. And so Turkey and Qatar have mixed duplicitous interests. They're all Muslim Brotherhood stooges of Hamas, and they're playing both sides. But that's the way diplomacy is. And Trump capitulated to Netanyahu being pushed out because he understands that game and he wants to soften them up so that peace can come through the Abraham Accords. We all know he's a transactional guy and he's the center of gravity. So he's flattering their egos and prematurely pushing this narrative, this peace in the Middle East narrative, hoping that it is enough to lead to the Abraham Accords. And frankly, I think all this pomp and circumstance and, these holy monarchs and world leaders getting together, patting each other on the back, it kind of makes my stomach turn a little bit that it's being framed as peace. It's much more sinister than it looks, but I think that people, especially in the West, are so desperate for peace, this abstract concept, that they want to believe it. But the big question at the end of the day is, does Trump want to maintain this international illusion of peace between Hamas and Israel when in fact there is no peace yet? Or is he genuinely interested in Hamas disarming? And as you mentioned, is he really prepared to go back into Gaza City, use violence in order to get the job done?
Yeah.
Karis Rea, many unanswered questions there and very good points well taken in terms of, President Trump threatening just in the last 24 hours or so, if Hamas doesn't live up to the deal, there will be consequences. What those look like remains to be seen. All right, we've got our own issues here at home, right, Kate? It's day 15 of the government shutdown here in the U.S. And for the 8th time on Wednesday, the Senate failed to pass a funding bill. So as we enter the 3rd week of the shutdown, the latest drama comes in the form of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's video that she wants played at the nation's airport. I know you flew yesterday, Kate.
Yes.
Out of O'Hare.
Right, with
Airport.
a 3-hour delay on the runway.
Did you see this video playing
I
there?
did not. I missed it.
So in the video, Noem is blaming Democrats for its impact on TSA operations. Several airports are refusing to play the video. So our question of the day, it's about the federal shutdown and whether Congress should continue to get paid right now. Per Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution, they will continue getting their paychecks, unlike other federal employees during the shutdown. So let us know what you think. Yes, the law is the law. They deserve to be paid, or no. If anyone should be going without a paycheck, it's our lawmakers in the nation's capital. And right now, most of you were saying no. You can scan that QR code right there on the right side of your screen to let us know what you think.
It was a 3-hour wait on the runway in O'Hare, and it was unclear. They kept saying it was the shutdown that was causing it, but there's also been a lot of traffic control problems out of Newark, and that's where I was flying into. So it's unclear what exactly was the problem. Are they just blaming a lot of the things on the shutdown? It's sort of a convenient thing to blame on, but it was still kind of a pain.
Oh, we're glad you made it here.
Yeah, I did make it. Thank you, Jim. Always with the silver lining. Well, another story making waves is President Trump fuming about his cover photo on Time magazine. Take a look at this. Wow. Time posted the image on Instagram. The headlines, his triumph, the leader Israel needed, and how Gaza heals. But the president immediately blasted this picture, saying it's really weird and it may be the worst of all time, his quote. But on the bright side, he did say they wrote a relatively good story. You know, I always say never shoot up at somebody. I've always, like,
That's
whenever.
not a flattering angle.
It is not. There's no one
No.
can say that was the
He
best
also
angle.
said they disappeared my hair. If you look at the photo, you know, the top of his hair
Yes.
there, you see
Yeah, I can see
the light going through it.
I
and,
agree. It's not a good angle. His triumph, a good headline, but not a good angle of the photo.
It's not the photo I would pick for myself
No,
either.
not at all.
All right.
Not
So
at all.
don't we always say, you know, shoot up
Shoot
high?
up. Don't shoot from below. I'm always
Okay.
like, get up,
President
get up, get up.
not happy with that. All right. Still ahead. Ever had to wait days to get approved for certain prescriptions or medical tests like MRIs?
Mm-hmm.
You are not alone. There are efforts to change that right now. We're going to tell you more about that when we come right back. Well, if you or a loved one has ever undergone a medical procedure or required certain prescription drugs, you're probably very familiar with something called the prior authorization process. That's when insurance companies have to approve certain tests or treatments before you can get them. This system has long been criticized for causing delays, sometimes endangering patients' health. In response to widespread concerns, a coalition of major insurers has pledged to reform the prior authorization process. And joining us now to discuss these developments is Dr. William Solomon. He's head of the Accreditation Council for Medical Affairs. an organization that actually helps the people who have to say yes or no to prior authorization,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Thanks for
Exactly.
being here. This has been criticized for years. I know it's very frustrating if you, the patient, or a loved one is waiting for something to get prior authorization. Why is it so tough for there to be meaningful reforms in this process?
Well, one of the things that people don't realize is that the number one reason for care delay in the United States is prior authorization. So 93% of the time when there's a care delay, it's because of a prior authorization. And why it's very difficult is that our healthcare system in the United States is a very complex process. And that's number one. Number two, a lot of the people that are actually trying to process those prior authorizations, they don't know how to do it. This is not a thing that's been educated, they haven't been educated or taught.
It's their
on how
job
to-
and they don't know how to do it.
Yeah, a lot of it is just handed down. It's like oral kind of tradition or information handed down from person to person. So really, until the ACMA came into existence, there was no codified process for how to submit a prior authorization. Now, in their defense, one of the challenges though is that the pharmacy benefit managers, the insurance companies, they make it hard. Okay, they make it difficult to be able to get these prior authorizations through the system and to get them approved. That's also important to understand. But there are reforms that are being proposed in Congress to try to streamline this. But unfortunately, a lot of that is related to technology changes and digital changes with AI. And as we saw with United Health Group, at least allegedly there, sometimes those algorithms can actually push more prior authorization denials so that more patients have a difficult time getting access to important medications they need.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have humans involved in that process.
Exactly, yes.
And also
Agreed.
a process, right? Well, the coalition promises reductions and streamlining. How significant are these changes in practice, and what impact can patients and providers expect?
So one of the things that people don't realize is in the big, beautiful bill, there was actually a provision to try to reform PBMs. But unfortunately, that provision, when it got to the House, was removed. And what people don't realize is today the PBMs, the pharmacy benefit managers, those middlemen are really the primary player in driving up healthcare costs and prescription drug costs.
Really?
That's the major, because the way a PBM works is they make money based on the list price of the drug by the pharmaceutical manufacturer. So when a pharma company, let's say, says this drug is $1,000, the PBM basically gets a cut of that. They negotiate a percentage of that. So if you think about it, the higher the drug price, the more of a rebate the PBM gets. And so this is why I think, to the Trump administration's credit, they've been trying, even in the first administration, to try to streamline and reform what's happening with PBMs. But again, unfortunately, in the last, provision for the big, beautiful bill, that was taken out. And so I think we still a long way to go in terms of seeing reforms as it comes to prior authorization.
So where does this leave patients? And if you've been denied prior authorization, what's your best course of action?
So the best course of action really is to make sure that you have good relationship and communication with the team at your doctor's office. So, making sure that you're working with the billing department, that you're encouraging them, pushing them to, put an appeal through to the insurance company. Because a lot of times, because it's so difficult, they may not want to do that because it's just a very cumbersome process.
Well, do you think these reforms are going to alleviate any problems, or do you think we're just going to see more problems on top of this?
I think we won't see any change anytime soon, unfortunately. I think we're trying theoretically to move in the right direction, but realistically, relying only on some of the technological changes may speed up some of the prior authorization approvals, but we're still going to see a lot of denials. And here's the thing. Most of the drugs approved by the FDA today in the United States are specialty drugs. They're very expensive. So I think you're going to see more prior authorization denials. Insurance companies are going to push back even harder because they're more expensive drugs to want to cover.
Yeah.
We'd like to get to yes more often than no.
Exactly,
Obviously.
yeah.
All right, Dr. Solomon, thanks for being here
Thank
in
you
the
for having
Diner
me.
on Connecting America.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Solomon.
Thank you.
Well, to consumer news we go. Taco Bell is testing a new $3 Lux value menu. The limited time menu is only available in select locations in Ohio. It features 5 items, all $3 or less, including mini taco salads, Chipotle Ranch chicken stackers, not sure what those are, beefy potato loaded grillers, chips with nacho supreme dip, and for dessert, salted caramel churros. The menu first launched in Indianapolis, not in Ohio, and has now expanded to Dayton, signaling a potential nationwide rollout. Experts say Taco Bell is trying to appeal to budget-conscious consumers who are spending less eating out. That's according to Commerce Department data. I love that they call it Lux, because when you think of $3 and trying to appeal to a consumer who's looking to save money, you don't think Lux, but maybe that's part of the appeal, right?
Maybe you'll be spending some extra dollars on antacids after you eat all that.
That's
All
a
right.
lot of food.
Good luck. We'll be right back on Connecting America. It's happened again. Gold has hit record highs lately. Here's the interesting part. Almost every time we see political unrest, protests, changes in economic policy, Wall Street panics, the dollar fluctuates, and our retirement accounts take a hit. Gold, however, stays rock solid. Joining us now is Shannon Davis, CEO of American Alternative Assets, to break down what's going on. Shannon, thanks for being here. So we've seen gold hit record high after record high this year. Why is that happening now?
It's not random noise. It's because we're starting to see a lot of stress in our economic system, our global system. Jobs are disappearing. Last time we saw jobs disappear at this rate was our last downturn, 2008. I'm sure everybody remembers that. Tech industries, retail industries, service sectors, they're all cutting jobs. Political tension globally is shifting. Powers are shifting, and that's due to just the other countries not having confidence in our financial system. In times like this, trust erodes, confidence in banks and institutions and even currencies, they waver.
So where does gold come into this picture? Explain that to us. We know the government can keep printing dollars when they need to, but you can't print gold, obviously, assuming that's part of the reason.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned something very important. That's the challenge that the government's having now is they don't have the ability to just keep printing money because it's increasing our debt, which is $37 trillion, which is unsustainable. Why gold? Because it's outside of the system. There's nothing attached to it but the individual that owns it. And in today's world, it's no longer enough that something just holds value. It must also survive systems correcting, like our market, fiat money, which is our dollar, debt, collateral changes. They all depend on trust. We're losing that. We're losing leverage. This is when those are straining on our economy, and gold doesn't break, like you said. Central banks around the entire world are buying more gold than they ever have in the last 2 years. And that's why we're seeing record highs. But it all comes back to $37 trillion in debt. And we're adding to that every single 4 hours, billions. So this is what you're seeing, a safe haven asset, everybody going to it right now.
Shannon, I'm no financial expert. I always turn to experts. I do my homework, and we want our viewers to do the same. So tell us about resources that are out there to learn more about gold.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we've provided is many different guides that we've done our research. We've got a really robust research department. There's just things that people can do to educate themselves. That's what we provide here at American Alternative Assets. It starts with education first. We know the metals industry, hard, precious metals, physical metals, and that's what we educate people on. Everybody else can see what's going on in our markets, the uncertainties there.
How do people get the guide that you put together?
Yeah, so they can go to connect4gold.com. They can call us. We provide a free consultation. That's at 888-414-GOLD. Ton of educational material for people to get educated before it's too late, before we see a major correction in our market again.
All right, Shannon, thanks so much. Once again, here's where you can go for that guide, connect4gold.com, or call 888-414-GOLD. There's a lot more information than we were able to cover today, and it's free, so no excuses out there. Knowledge is power. Other news this morning, Arizona Democrat Adelita Grijalva was elected to Congress last month in a special election to succeed her father, but she's still waiting to be sworn in. House Speaker Mike Johnson, who has to administer the oath of office, says he can't act on that until the House gets back from its recess, which he says is not going to happen until the federal shutdown is resolved. But Democrats point out 2 Florida Republicans were sworn in early while Congress was out of session. Mike Johnson had this to say.
Family and friends in town. In fact, there's no one here. It's like a ghost town. So we're going to administer her oath as soon as she gets back. This has zero to do with Epstein.
Procedure is what's really behind the delay. Now, Arizona's Attorney General is saying she would take legal action if Speaker Johnson continues to refuse to swear in Grijalva.
We are joined now by Arizona Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva to talk about why she thinks she's being stalled. Everyone has an opinion, and what this means for her district. First of all, thanks for joining us. Why do you think this is a stall tactic?
Well, as you mentioned earlier in the little clip, there are 2 representatives that were sworn in on a pro forma session like the one we're going to have today in under 24 hours from the date of their election. And those are 2 Republicans from Florida. But there was also Representative Walkinshaw who was sworn in under 24 hours. And so my being sworn in doesn't change the number of Democrats in office. Republicans are still going to have the majority. And so the only other thing that we can point to is the fact that I'm going to be the 218th signer to the discharge petition to release the Epstein files.
Now, we know Speaker Johnson has said he's in favor of releasing the Epstein documents. So why do you believe that that's what's at play here?
Well, why haven't the documents been released then? If he's in favor, a majority of the nation wants to see it. This was one of the promises that Trump made when he was running for office, that on day one, the Epstein files were going to be released. So what is the holdup? And then a couple of months ago, Speaker Johnson literally ended votes, sent everyone home early to avoid having a vote on the Epstein files. So it's very suspicious otherwise. And honestly, I'm not a conspiracy theorist type of person. Like the most plausible reason is the reason. And so I literally on election night, someone came up to me and said, they're not going to swear you in because of the Epstein files. And I thought, no way. Yeah, here we are. My race was certified yesterday. Today is 22 days since my election that I've been now not sworn in. Our constituents do not have a voice in Congress. I have no services in the district, no staff, no budget. I mean, there are real consequences to playing games with my swearing in, and it impacts 800.
I think we lost you there for 1 second, but I just want to pick you back up here. And you were touching on with Congress at a standstill, your seat still vacant. You were talking about those consequences. What does that mean for the people of your district?
It means that 811,000 people do not. My father passed away 7 months ago on the 13th. And so there has been no co-sponsoring of legislation. No, services still continued in the district until September 23rd. And on that date, all of the offices were closed, insignias were taken off. I mean, we are in the middle of a shutdown with 58,000 people in Arizona alone that are federal employees that have impacts to their day-to-day. Veterans that need services because so much is being cut. Families whose children are have special education needs that are going to need an advocate. And I am sitting here twiddling my thumbs. I can't do my job, literally cannot, until I get sworn in.
And our condolences on your loss, on the death of your father, by the way. Importantly, what is your first priority, other than you've already addressed the issue of the Epstein files and signing on to release those files? What do you want to see happen in your district? What's your first priority legislatively?
So when we were campaigning, all we heard about is like protecting our democracy, protecting our rights, standing up for the environment, and pushing climate, acknowledging climate change and protecting our environment, public education, comprehensive immigration reform. But truly, truly, where we are right now is protecting this democracy that we all grew up with.
Arizona Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva, we really appreciate you joining us and shedding insight for us.
All right. Are you a Powerball player, or are you just kind of
Not
ignore?
on a daily basis, but occasionally when it gets really high?
Yeah, when it gets into the billions,
yes.
maybe you're all in. All right. So we've been visiting this story in a small town in Texas ever since the second winning Powerball ticket sold in that $1.8 billion jackpot. Mm-hmm. It's been claimed now by an anonymous trust.
Ooh.
The anonymous winner chose the cash option. We know that, saying the numbers were meaningful to their family. He or she chose the lump sum, which is around $410 million. Ooh. That winning ticket was sold in the town of Fredericksburg. We love visiting Fredericksburg, so let's go there now. Radio host Sugar Baby Shane Williams from KFAN Texas Rebel Radio joining us again. Shane, thanks for being here. Welcome back to Connecting America.
I can't believe you guys had us on for the third time. This story, finally, it seems like we've had a good break in it, and I'm just happy to be back on.
So they've remained anonymous, but surely in the small town of Fredericksburg, there's some pretty good
Somebody
hunches
knows.
Who's who's in the money.
Yeah.
Look, a lot of people have their theories, especially with the revocable trust being named Seven Bridges. It allows you to kind of narrow some things down, and maybe there's a neighborhood that's named that, or Seven Bridges is some sort of pseudonym for something in someone's life. So certainly there's there's a lot of talk around the hill country right now. Jerry and I honestly didn't think anyone was going to come forward. So to even get this type of information, we think is a very big deal.
Okay, so the 7 bridges, it sounds like that's the only clue to go on, right? And you, a local, that doesn't ring a bell. 7 bridges to you, what does that mean?
It doesn't ring a lot of bells to
Okay.
me. I mean, the only bridges that are really even in the area are the bridges that kind of hover over the Guadalupe River, which is kind of down south of us. So to me, it's not really, my engine doesn't really go on that. But I'm sure to some people who have been here for maybe 50, 60 years, maybe they have a different take on it, and it's more nuanced in that way.
Still the talk of the town?
Still the talk of the town, unequivocally. Obviously, our community's been hit hard by the flooding of the Guadalupe River on July the 4th this year.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird how Fredericksburg's become kind of the center of the universe this year in many ways. But what's really the talk of the town is in this speech, they said, "We are Texas, true to the state and its values. We believe in family and faith and the blessings that come through both. This is a moment of gratitude for us, a blessing we plan to enjoy and share with those who are special to us and who serve our community. We ask for privacy as we look forward to enjoying our lives together as family. God bless Texas." So, of course, small town Texas folk, I mean, that's just kind of us to a T. So that statement is going to ring true throughout the Texas Hill Country. And honestly, it was just very kind of read that last night and was like, oh, okay, well, that's great to hear. So that describes us to a T here in the Texas Hill Country.
That resonated, that comment. You could tell that it was one of your own when you read that comment, and the fact that they plan to share the
Keyword
winnings,
being shared,
which is
Shane.
wonderful, especially given all of the problems with the flooding. And I'm sure that just gets the talk even more. How is this money going to be shared, and what good can be done with it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a ton of public entities that still need donations from the flooding and things like that. We did a cover story the day after the flood happened on the Salvation America efforts going on in Kerrville. And when we were driving down to Kerrville, it was us next to like a bunch of HEB trucks, which is a big grocer down here. And they were taking a lot of waters and food for families. And it was like 20, 30 trucks. I mean, and 18 wheelers. I mean, it was just, the response for this was so incredible. And then, of course, President Trump came down and took a look at it a couple of days later. So we got to do a cover story on that. So I think the money can be used for a lot of good. Most importantly, there's still a lot of issues going on with that flooding of the Texas Hill Country. So there's a lot of avenues that money can still be used. But there's also a really sweet, attractive, young radio host who who wouldn't mind a slice of the pie.
All right,
I
Shane.
bet so. Thank you, Shane Williams. We appreciate you again.
All right. When we come right back, we're going to be making some new friends here at the diner, hang out with a couple on a mission to visit every diner in New Jersey.
So
Stay
cool.
with us. Yeah.
Talk about the right story on the right day in the right place. We are joined by Carrie and John Ricklin, who are on a very unique mission to visit every single diner in New Jersey. Have you been here?
Yes, we have actually.
So this is a repeat visit.
It's a repeat, which we don't do too often, but special occasions.
Well, partially.
Partially. We actually came here.
Doors.
Right after the pandemic. It was one of the first places we ate when outdoor.
You had to eat inside.
No, it counts.
Okay.
But the restrooms were open, so we walked into the building and we ate outside. So that makes it official.
Yes, you got it on a technicality.
There are 400 diners in New Jersey, and you plan to hit all of them?
Yes.
And how many have you been to so far?
We just hit number 298.
Wow. That's amazing.
But that 400 is a little misleading because we've been to probably about 40 diners that are no longer operating. They either closed or changed ownership name. So we kind of have to subtract that from our 298, and that leaves about 140 or so to go.
Okay, I love a big goal, and I'm wondering, how did this start? Was this a conversation in a diner? Wouldn't it be fun if we visited every single diner in New Jersey?
The way it actually started years ago, my sister was in a hospital afterwards. Let's go get something to eat.
Sure.
We were at a diner. I said, John, hold the menu up. He held it up. I took a picture.
And I said, you know what would really be cool if we took this exact same picture at every diner in New Jersey. At that time, having absolutely no idea how many there were. And I sort of said it as a joke. So over the next maybe 6-8 months, we went to maybe 2 or 3 more diners. And just for kicks, we took the picture.
Yeah.
And I would say maybe 9 months after that, we were driving through South Jersey on a road trip, and we kept seeing all these, cool little diners along the way. And I said to Carrie, you know what? Remember that crazy story, that crazy idea that we had? Let's do it. And ever since then, we've been doing it.
I love it. And do you do reviews? And is there a website?
No website. We actually have a Instagram page at NJ Diner Journey. Please check it out. We do not do reviews. We purposely don't. One of the reasons, I'm a small business owner.
Yes.
And even though I've been doing it for 30 years, now and then I have a bad day.
Sure.
And if you go into a diner, almost every diner is a small business.
Of course.
And we may hit them on that bad day when every other day is perfect. There's plenty of people doing reviews on Google and whatever. No, we just want to go in. We want to support the small businesses and just enjoy the experience.
Celebrate.
And if it's not that good, well, write it off and just go on.
Chalk it up.
Is there a go-to dish that you order consistently, or you like to vary it?
I'm a nurse, so I'm the healthy one.
Okay.
Yeah, she had yogurt and granola a few minutes ago.
That's Jim's dish.
Yep. All right.
Yes.
Does that mean I can bring mine over?
Yes, absolutely. Enjoy. No, I'm usually the salad with grilled chicken on top.
Yes.
Okay.
And a smidge of dressing.
Not breakfast all day for you?
It depends. You know what? It depends what time of day we're out.
Our schedules, breakfast is sometimes tough with our work schedules, so we don't kid it that often. So we enjoy it when we can, but it's usually lunch, and usually a late lunch on a Saturday. That's the majority of times. I'm more of a sandwich, panini, burger type person, but we try to mix it up. It's not always the same.
And there's no time deadline involved with reaching this goal. And how long have you been at it?
Fun.
Actually, since 2015.
It's been 10 years. The first few years, it was a very slow process. But I would say right before the pandemic and then right after, the pandemic passed and dining reopened, that's when we really went full speed ahead.
There's so much nostalgia around a diner, right? And people have so many great stories. I bet meeting the people in the diner has probably become a highlight.
I'm Hun to Priscilla back there.
Okay.
We always say good morning.
Yeah.
She says,
Our
good morning,
waitress here
Hun.
was wonderful. She was great. I'm not sure who it was, but it was great. It's the staff is always one. You get a talkative person working with you. Sometimes we tell them what we're doing. Sometimes we don't. We kind of read the room whether it's appropriate or not. And if we can get a chance to meet the owner, sometimes once they hear what we're doing, they get very excited. They want to take a picture with with the staff. But sometimes we do it anonymously. It all depends.
Well, we're definitely going to take a picture with you this morning, and I hope you'll post it on your Instagram.
Absolutely.
We will as well. Thanks for being here on Connecting America on this Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.